Elite universities have consistently found that the most important predictor of success is not academic achievement, extracurricular activities, or personal essays, but rather the colour of an applicant's bag. Studies have shown that applicants who choose a red bag on their interview day are 75% more likely to score top grades than any other applicants. That's because red symbolises passion, energy, and a commitment to learning. Whoa there. Just rewind a moment. Studies have shown that applicants who choose a red bag on their interview day are 75% more likely to score top grades than any other applicants. Did you hear that? Did you believe it? Or were you a bit sceptical? Was there some doubt flitting through your mind as you were listening? I hope so, because that statement was patently complete rubbish. Red bag? What? Now, if you fell for that one, you should probably think about not applying for an elite university because, well, they're looking for critical thinking skills, which are the skills you would have needed to have been using if you were to have doubted what I was just saying. This video is all about critical thinking skills. What are they? How can you develop them? And how can you show them off in your university application? I'm a graduate of Oxford University with a strong track record of getting students into the world's elite institutions. So listen carefully when I say that what you need to do is really build your critical thinking skills to mix it with the best brains on the planet. What is critical thinking then? Well, critical thinking is the analysis of the available facts, evidence, observations and arguments in order to form a judgment which is based on rational, sceptical and unbiased analyses and evaluations. I think a good starting point in that definition is the keyword sceptical, which means you need to doubt everything that you hear. When you hear some new information on YouTube or from a politician or from one of your teachers or from one of your parents, then your default position should be to doubt what they've said. You should always ask yourself, can I really trust that? Once you've asked that question, you're on the right track. And then, of course, you've got to go and find out the answer, which means gathering together evidence and other arguments. This will certainly mean going to other sources of information. So, if one of your teachers tells you something new, you should go home and ask your parents what they think. If one of your parents tells you something, you should go and find out what your teacher's opinions are. When you start thinking in this way and looking around, you'll start to realise that the entire world is made up of different opinions, and that the best opinions are the ones that can be most strongly supported by the evidence. That's what critical thinking is. There's actually a really interesting debate in educational circles as to whether it's even possible to teach critical thinking skills or not. On the one side, you've got the belief that actually the only things you can teach are knowledge and new information, and that from that, when you have knowledge, you start to apply it in a critical way. And then on the other side, you've got the argument, yeah, actually you can teach critical thinking skills as long as you tell students and remind them constantly to consider the counter argument. You know, what's the other argument against that? And they'll learn critical thinking skills in that way. Well, I actually fall somewhere in the middle. I think you can't think critically unless you've got some knowledge, but I think you can also put yourself in positions where you can learn to think critically even without any prior knowledge. And so my recommendations about how to develop your critical thinking skills are to put yourselves in those kinds of situations. And there are three great ways of doing that. One thing you can do is to take part in any debates or public speaking events at your school. A second thing you can do is to do any kind of philosophy that you can. And a third thing you can do is to enter essay writing competitions. In all three of those activities, you're going to be forced to develop your critical thinking skills. So take public speaking and debates, for example. When you do a debate, you might be put in a team in which you have to argue against something that you actually believe in. So, for example, you might be anti-capitalist, but you might be put in a team where you've got to argue for capitalism. When you get put in that position, you're going to go and start researching all the arguments in favour of capitalism, and you will find out that against what you previously believed, there are in fact quite good and compelling arguments in favour of a topic that you are completely against. And as soon as you start to think in that way, you start to realise, oh, hang on a minute, there are alternative views to my view, and that starts to make you become more of a critical thinker. That will also happen in philosophy. As I was saying, the second thing you should study is philosophy. It's a brilliant subject, and its whole default position is to doubt everything, to break down all your beliefs until you're only left with things that everybody can agree are first principles that everyone can basically agree on. That's a fascinating experience of being skeptical and doubting, and I really recommend any opportunity to study philosophy to anybody. And the third thing I talked about was essay writing competitions. When you're writing an essay, you learn that you have to find out what the counter-argument is, usually in order to rebut it in your essay. So yeah, all three of those activities, taking part in public speaking debates, doing philosophy classes, and taking part in essay writing competitions, force you to think critically, even without any prior knowledge. That point about essay writing leads me nicely on to my final point, which is how to show off your critical thinking skills in your university application. Now, you might think that if you get an interview to an elite university, that could be a really great moment for doing a bit of gentle critiquing of whatever the interviewer is saying and showing off your critical thinking skills in that way, which could be a good idea, but you've got to be careful. You don't want to come across as arrogant or someone who always looks for the holes in someone else's argument. So there is a safer bet, which is to show those skills in any written application that you do. So in your personal statement, if you're applying in the UK, or in essays that you write if you're applying in the US. If you can write and show both sides of an argument and reach a balanced and reasoned conclusion, then that looks great. Something like this, for example. That certainly beats the bread bag argument now, doesn't it? So there you have it. Critical thinking means reaching a judgment by weighing up different sides of an argument using the evidence available and reaching a reasoned conclusion, always from a standpoint of skepticism. You can develop it by taking part in public speaking and debating competitions, by studying philosophy, and by taking part in essay writing competitions. And you can show it off in your university application in the written part of the application by giving a balanced argument and reaching a clear and reasoned conclusion. Let me know in the comments the things you've done, the activities you've taken part in your life which have most helped you, and the people you've met who've most helped you to develop your critical thinking skills. And like the video and subscribe to the channel so that you can find out the next time I post in my Elite University series.